In this lesson, we are going to learn to divide by a two-digit number. And to do this, the first thing we need to do is learn the steps to divide. So in order to help you memorize it and learn it, there's an acronym that goes with it. Dirty monkeys smell bad. Okay, so if you can remember that, that'll help you remember the steps to take when we do long division. So each of these letters stands for the step. So the first step is to divide, then multiply, subtract, and bring down. So I want you to keep that in the back of your head, and we're going to go now and look at an example. Okay, so I've written that up here. Remember, dirty monkeys smell bad. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. So let's look at how we use that. Okay, so here we are dividing 6,237 by 11. And the first thing we want to do is make sure that we set the problem up correctly. So we're going to put the larger number inside the division sign and put the smaller number on the outside. And then we are going to start with step 1, which is to divide. So I'm going to start with my very first number inside, which is 6. And I'm going to say to myself, how many times will 11 divide into 6? Well, 11 won't divide into 6 because 6 is smaller than 11. So I'm going to come up here and right above the 6, I'm going to put an X to hold that place to make sure I don't write anything above the 6, because we're going to find that it's very important to keep your numbers lined up properly. Okay, so then I'm going to move to the next number and put these two numbers together. 62. So 11 won't divide into 6, but will 11 divide into 62? The answer is yes, it will. So what we're trying to figure out is how many times will 11 divide into 62 without going over 62? That's really important. So let's see. 11 will divide into 62. Let's see. Let's start with 6. Okay, let's guess 6. Okay, so 11 times 6 is 66. So that's going to be too big, because that's bigger than 62. So let's go down one. Let's say 5. So 11 will divide into 62 5 times. That would only be 55. So that's not bigger than 62. So that'll work. So we're going to come up here, and above the 2, we're going to write a 5. Okay, so the next step, that was our dividing. We found out how many times 11 will divide into 62 without going over 62. So in this case, it's 5. Now we're going to multiply. And what that means is you're going to multiply this 5, the number that you just determined to divide, by this number. So you're going to say 5 times 11, and we know that that's 55. So I'm going to write 55 right under the number that I just used to divide, which was 62. Okay, so I'm not writing it over here. I haven't used this 3 or this 7 yet. We'll get to that in a minute. The only numbers that I've worked with so far are this 62, which is why I'm putting the 55 right below it. All right, so the next step is to subtract. So we divided, we multiplied, now we've got to subtract. So we're going to subtract these two numbers. Okay, so when I subtract those, I am going to get 7. Okay, all right. Now, my next step is to bring down. So this is where it's really key to keep your numbers lined up. So bring down means that we're going to bring down the next number, which is a 3. So I like to draw an arrow so I can keep it all lined up and keep it straight. Okay, so I brought down that 3. So now I'm at the end of my steps, and I still have numbers that I haven't brought down yet. So that means I need to repeat and do it again. So I'm going to come all the way back to the front and divide again. So I'm going to do the same thing all over again, except this time I'm going to divide 11 into 73. So 11 divides into 73 how many times without going over 73? So if I said 7, that would be a good place to start, but 7 times 11 is 77. So that means that would be bigger than 73. Remember, we're trying to not go over 73. So I'm going to bump it down 1 to 6. So 6 times 11 is 66. So that would work because it's close without going over. So right above this 3, the next number, I'm going to put a 6 because I've determined that 11 will divide into 73 6 times without going over 73. Okay, so that was divide. Now we're going to multiply. So I'm going to go back and take this 6, which is the number I just wrote down, multiply it by 11. That gives me 66. So I'm going to come down here and write 66 right under the 73 because that's the number that I was just using to divide. Okay, so notice I didn't put it under the 7 because we haven't even gotten to the 7 yet. I'm keeping it with the number that we just used to divide. So my next step is to subtract. So I'm going to subtract these two numbers. And when I do that, I get 7. So 73 minus 66 is 7. Okay? Then my next step is to bring down. So I look and see, is there any other numbers for me to bring down? And there sure is. There's this 7. So again, I'm going to draw an arrow just so I can keep track of all the numbers that I've brought down. Okay, so there I have 77. So I'm not done yet. I need to go and start all over again. So divide 11 divided into 77 will go 7 times. So I'm going to write a 7 up here. Then I'm going to multiply because that comes next. 7 times 11 is 77. Then I'm going to subtract. That's the next step. And when I subtract, I get 0. And when we get down to 0, sorry, I'm not able to write the 0. I'll have to write it over here. There we go. When I'm able to subtract and get to 0, that means I'm done. So our quotient, our answer, when we divide 6,237 by 11 is 567. Okay, so I'm going to work this one. If you want to stay and continue watching for another example, I'm going to work this one a little bit quicker just to show you the steps. So first, I'm going to divide. 22 will not divide into 2, so I'm going to put an X up here, hold that place. Will 22 divide into 29? Yes, it will. It will divide 1 time without going over 29. And so the next step is to multiply. So 1 times 22 is 22. Okay. My next step is to subtract. So 29 minus 22 is 7. And then my next step is to bring down. So I'm going to bring down the next number, which is this 7. So I'm going to draw my arrow. Okay. Then I'm going to start all over again because I'm not done yet because I still have numbers that I need to bring down and do something with. So 22 will divide into 77 3 times without going over 77. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to write a 3. That's my dividing. Then I'm going to multiply. I'm going to say 3 times 22, and that is 66. Then the next step is to subtract. And when I subtract those, I get 11. Okay, and then the next step is to bring down. So I'm going to bring down that 2. Okay, let's see. So I'm going to draw my arrow. Okay, so now I haven't gotten down to 0 yet, and I still need to keep going. So I'm going to come and start all over again. So I need to figure out how many times will 22 divide into 112. So you may have to do a little trial and error with that one. That means you might have to guess, make a good educated guess. I'm going to say, all right, this is about 20 and this is about 100. So 20 will divide into 100 5 times. So let's try that and see if that works. So I'm going to guess 5. And 5 times 22 is 110. So that's our next step, is to multiply 5 times 22. So that gives me 110. Okay. Then I need to subtract, because that's my next step. And when I subtract, I get 2. So what's different about this one is I'm left with 2, but I know that it's time for me to stop because I have no other numbers to bring down. So when I know I have no other numbers to bring down, and my number is 2, and 22 will not divide into 2. 2 is smaller than 22. So that means 2 is my remainder. So our answer is 135 with a remainder of 2.